Stan Gibilisco here on the first real summer-like day we've had this season. It got up to 70 degrees Fahrenheit today here in the black holes of Dakota Territory. My nephew was musing on email this afternoon with me about his science professor, who is one of the small group of people who believe that dark matter does not exist, and that in fact what the real problem is that we don't fully understand how gravity works. Now, I don't fully understand any of this stuff. I do not lay claim to being an expert about any of this kind of physics, but I do remember something struck me. A couple of things struck me. I was very much interested in this when I was in high school. The structure of the universe, the evolution of the universe, and whether there are other universes. And I was reading an original work of Albert Einstein. And in this work, he talked about a universe that was finite but unbounded, and likened it to the surface of a sphere, except instead of a two-dimensional surface and a three-dimensional sphere, he was talking about a three-dimensional surface and a four-dimensional sphere, and the fourth dimension not necessarily being time. He seemed to think that a sphere was the most natural form that an object could take, something like water finding its own level. And among the many stories that seem to grace people's minds as the years have passed about Einstein was that he got a lot of his ideas in the bathtub. He would take bubble baths, so the story goes, and he'd take them for a long time until his wife finally called to him, "Hey, you've been in there an awful long time," and he said, quiet, I'm thinking. You ought to try that sometime. Swimming, running, taking a bubble bath, whatever floats your bubbles, and see whether or not some sort of brilliant insight comes to you. Oftentimes, that's when the most brilliant imaginations work. And he noticed the bubbles. This is the way the story goes now. I don't know whether there's any truth to it or not. And he noticed, as they hovered in the air, that they seemed to be something natural about their form. That for some reason, the soap film wanted to attain this shape. Obviously, because it was like the path of least resistance. It was the most natural form for an object to take. And he thought, I wonder if the whole universe obeys the same principle and is in fact a great big bubble, maybe in some cosmic bubble bath, possibly among many other bubbles of similar nature, hovering in four-dimensional space with a three-dimensional surface, meaning that if one of us were to travel out far enough in any direction, eventually we'd arrive back where we started. And he actually did some calculations, I guess, using his general theory of relativity, and came up to the conclusion, as I recall, that the circumference of our universe, if it were shaped like that, must be on the order of 2 times 10 to the 11th light years, or 200 billion 200,000 million light years in circumference. And I've always thought that was a cool theory. However you try to account for it, and I began to invent reasons why the universe would be like that, and of course I always had to invent things. I had to make up axioms. I had to make up a force, which was a repulsive force, which balanced the attraction of gravity so the sphere would not collapse down to a point. I postulated this repulsive force. and others have done the same. And there are scientists who believe that dark matter and dark energy are nothing at this point more than postulates or axioms or assumptions that we're making that could very well turn out to be completely wrong. Of course, have we ever found out for sure what was completely right? How could we ever know? Like my Uncle John used to say, the only time I was right was the time that I... Wait a minute. The only time that I was wrong was the time that I thought I was wrong, but I was really right. And then Jibilisco's corollary to that, the only time that I thought I was right, or the only time that I actually was right, I'll get it. The only time that I was really right in my life was the time that I thought I was right, but I was really wrong. Imagine if all of our theories about these sorts of things are wrong. Imagine if they have to be wrong. That there's some cosmic law that says that we always have to be wrong. That we'll never get it all. That the universe is not only more complicated than we understand, or more exotic, or more strange, but more strange than we can understand. With that thought, take a nice bubble bath and go to bed. Dream about universes galore. Stan Jibilisco signing off. Until next time, so long.